Hello everyone. We can see you're all logging on, so that's great. Let us know in the questions if you can't hear or see us or if there are any issues. Okay, it looks like everything is all good. So we might get started. All right, so welcome to today's webinar on consumer leases and lemon laws. My name is Ellen Limerick and I've got with me today two lovely ladies. We've got Edwina Yasso, our Community Legal Education Officer here at Legal Aid, and Charo Weldon, our Anti-Discrimination and Consumer Protection Lawyer at Legal Aid. All right. So before we get started, I just want to quickly flag that this webinar is for community legal education purposes only. And I'll go through a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who've not been to a Legal Aid webinar before. So this webinar is being recorded and it will go up on our YouTube channel at the end of today. And we've got other information on our information for community workers and carers page on the Legal Aid website if you would like to register for a future webinar or get more information about upcoming webinars. And if you've got any technical difficulties, the phone number is on the screen, so give that a call. Okay. So one thing that we do in these webinars is we upload handouts. So you can do that right now. If you go to your panel on the right-hand side of the screen, there is a handout bar. Now click handouts to open the handout section. And you'll see we've got 3 documents up there for you today. Now, one of them are these PowerPoint slides. So if you'd like, you can print them out and go through them yourself. Another handout is a one-pager about consumer leases. So it gives you a bit more information about the topic today. And then I've also uploaded our next webinar, which looks like this. So that's Young People in the Law. That will be our next webinar, and that will be from our Youth Justice team at Legal Aid. And that's next week on the 7th of November. So if you work with vulnerable young people, that might be a good webinar for you to come along to. And you can find out details about how to register by checking that handout. Now, if you've got any questions throughout this presentation, feel free to put them in the question box. Otherwise, we'll probably answer the questions at the end. So we'll save a bit of time at the end to go through the questions. And thank you to everyone who's already put in a question when you registered today, because we will go through some of those questions as well. Okay, so we're going to start off with a couple of polls. So we're just interested in what area do you work in? So I'm launching the poll now. It should come up on your screen. And you can tell us, where do you live? Southeast Queensland, far north Queensland, regional, or are you from another state? And I know many of you on here might be financial counsellors. So would that be right, Charo? They're from across?
Yeah, a few financial counsellors. I understand a few other legal services.
Yeah, so we've probably got people here from across Australia. Okay, so you'll get to see, we'll give you a couple more seconds to put in your response to the poll and then we'll share the results with you. Okay, I'm going to close off that poll now and share the results. So it looks like we've got 31% of people from Southeast Queensland, 17% far north, 34% from regional, which is great, and 17% from outside of Queensland. So that's great. We can get so many people today in this webinar. And we've got one more poll. We'd just like to find out from you guys what area best describes the field you work in. Okay, so are you from a community legal centre or other legal service? Are you a community health or education worker? Are you from another government department that's not represented in any of those other answers? Or are you from an electorate office? Or are you none of the above? Okay, I'll just give you a couple more seconds to answer that poll before I close it off. Okay, I'm going to close that poll now and share it with you. Okay, so I can see almost half of you are community health or education workers. About a third of you are from a community legal centre or some kind of legal service. And then 27% of you are other. So I'm guessing that's the financial counsellor, which I should have put that in as an option. Sorry, guys. Okay. All right, so today we're going to have, it's a bit more of an informal webinar than maybe what you're used to, because this is a conversation that Ed and Charo are going to have about these legal topics. So I'm going to pretty much hand it over to them to go for their lives. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A. So if you hang around, if we go over time, we might go over time by a couple of minutes, but we'll try not to. Okay. All right, ladies.
Thanks. Thanks, Ellen. So, sorry, you probably saw me smiling and half giggling there. Being Aboriginal and Southsea, yeah, we definitely probably will go over time, but we'll try not to. So, first off, I want to thank everyone for joining. And before I would start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we're on and the elders past and present. As Ellen said, I'm Edwina Yasso, and I've actually been working at Legal Aid Queensland now since July, and as the Community Legal Education Officer. And today, as part of my role, I am so lucky. I'm actually sitting here with Charo, and Charo is going to is an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lawyer who is working in the civil law team. And so we're going to spend some time talking, as we keep talking about, consumer leases and lemon laws. However, firstly, I will now let Charo tell us more about herself.
Thank you, Edwina. I'd also like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on the land in which we are today and the elders past and present. As a lawyer and an Aboriginal lawyer, the subjects that we're talking about today have a huge impact on our communities and are sometimes something that I talk about often on a regular basis.
So we're going to start with consumer leases first. However, I'm going to start by saying I would probably like to know about my consumer rights before I go into consumer leases. So could you give us information on the consumer rights, Charo?
Yeah, so you as a consumer, the general public, you're paying for goods and services for your own personal benefits. That's a consumer. You're protected by the Australian Consumer Law, which is covered under the schedule of the Australian Competition and Consumer Act 2010. But since we're talking about consumer leases, we're dealing now with leases deal with when you buy leases for goods on finance, so fridges, white goods, microwaves, so forth. You have protection under the National Consumer Credit Act.
Okay, so when I'm buying stuff from the store and I'm buying it through a finance, as you said, it comes under the consumer, it covers me. I've been covered under a Consumer Act, but then also I have another coverage under a Consumer Credit Act too.
Yes.
So there's two things I'm covered under.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So so what I would like to know next is what comes under consumer leases. Can you go over what a consumer lease is?
So it's usually the sorts of leases that you can get, but the contract is where you rent a white good or other household goods for a specific time frame, such as a year or 3 years. in that time you're required to pay a rental amount each fortnight or month, every month for the use of that good. But you need to understand that you don't own the good usually at the end of the rental contract. But in some cases you will have the opportunity to buy it.
Oh, okay. So based on what you're talking about, is basically what it's called, a rental contract. So a consumer lease is a rental contract. So I'm renting it. I may not own it at the end. So it depends on the rental contract that I sign.
Mm-hmm.
However, you're saying some may give me an option to buy it. Is that right?
Yeah, so with leases, you don't normally own it. You don't own it during the rental contract or when the contract ends. It is different, like you said, but some options that you can have at the end may be something like returning the good during, as long as it's in good condition.
So that's saying that's an option where I'm just paying pure rent. I'm renting. Okay.
Yeah. So you can rent it, provided you return it back in good condition, no further payments required. So that's one of the options.
Mm-hmm.
Another option could be that you make an offer to purchase the goods at the end, which may involve paying an additional amount of money. However, the lease provider can still refuse to sell it to you.
So I could buy it if I pay more, and if the lease company says, lets me do that. That's another option.
As long as they say you can.
Okay.
So you make all those rental payments, and at the end, you may have an option to buy it. And that's their discretion.
Okay. And what's the other option?
Another option is you could just upgrade to a newer model at the end after returning the old good and sign up for a new lease agreement. You should be aware though that this may then be a higher rate than before.
Okay, so I can just continue renting and not owning this stuff and continue upgrading. However, it could be, that's like paying rent when I don't own a house.
That's right.
Okay. So, yes, all up on paying something that I don't actually own under a consumer lease. So when you do so when I'm actually doing this financial, this consumer lease, they actually ask me all these questions about my finances and, and my income and my expenses. So what's that all about? Why do they do that? What is it about?
So under the National Consumer Credit Act, financial service providers, which are the companies that you're lending from or renting from, they are required to assess whether you can actually afford the repayments without undue hardship.
Okay. So this is a credit check. And this could impact me later on down the track if I actually want to go for, let's say, a home loan or something like that, something larger than what you can get under a consumer lease.
So there's two components to that question. The first bit is regarding the credit check. Under the National Consumer Credit Act, financial service providers, like I said before, lenders are required to assess whether you can afford to make the repayments without undue hardship. The second part of the question is the borrower's credit report. So your credit report will be affected if you do not make your payments under your lease. So if you don't pay your lease out, it will affect your credit report.
So if I don't pay my credit, my credit report will be an issue if I don't pay.
That's right.
However, they are required to assess if I can pay, is what you're saying, if I'm able to pay. And that's why they ask me all those questions about my income and expenses.
That's right.
Okay. So what happens, so what if I've gone through this process and then all of a sudden I've lost my job and I have been sick and I can't pay this? Can they still come and take the goods?
Yeah, they can. However, you can ask for a financial hardship variation if sickness is only temporary or your unemployment is only a temporary thing. You can apply for hardship, which may be something like a reduced payment plan for a period of time, such as 3 months, or you may be able to negotiate surrendering some goods and then amending the contract for a smaller amount of payments if you decide during the contract you can't afford it anymore. If the company is not willing to provide hardship, you have the right to make a complaint to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, who is an external dispute resolution commission. Now we've got the link on our PowerPoint.
Yeah. Did you want to go into the website, Charo, so everyone on the webinar can see the website? All right, so I'm just sharing my screen with you. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. It's just loading.
So while it's loading, I'm just going to ask, so if I'm sick and I'm unemployed, I could do a temporary thing, but the temporary things only goes for 3 months?
It's all case by
subject.
case.
Okay,
So it
that's
depends. It depends on, I guess, what evidence you have, how long you need the hardship for, and what the financial service provider can provide.
Cool.
But they have to make, they have to actually consider hardship. Unless there's, I think it's under Section 72 of the National Consumer Credit Code, they usually have to give you hardship unless there's valid reasons why they don't believe that you're sick, or giving you the hardship is not basically going to make a difference.
Okay, so run us through this now.
Okay,
so what do you suggest?
So often when I speak to people, I get them, if they can, to talk to the internal dispute resolution part of the company before they lodge with AFCA. That's what AFCA will want you to do anyway. So to find their details, you click on Make a Complaint. You go down to Start the Complaint Process, click on that. And then it's asks you all these things to say before you start a complaint. Have you done all these things? I click on Find Your Financial Firm. And in there, you can type in a company name. I don't know if I really want to use a company name, but you can type it in, and then once you type it in and press search, it will usually come in this area, the details.
Okay.
And it will usually have their email address and their postal address and their phone number. So you or the client could contact that company and ask if you're helping the client ask for hardship or even requesting documents.
Cool. So you're saying this is a really good screen to check out because this company, this complaints group will actually assume that we'll assume that you've already made the right contact with the financial leasing company first before you put the complaint in. So this is a way of getting straight to the correct section that look after that.
Yes,
okay.
That's right.
So, okay, so that's really good. So really, a really simple way of going about is this is a way of getting the correct number to get to the right financial, the unit within that financial, the leasing company of how I can get hardship. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because sometimes people just contact the company directly and they may not actually get the hardship team, and so that company may not really know what to do, and they give the person a run around. Whereas if you go through the hardship side, the hardship team are meant to be trained in that area, and then if they make that decision to still say no to the hardship, then the consumer has the right to make a complaint to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. And that's the website up here, and that's their phone number up here, which is also on our slide.
But so once again, there is things you should do, we should do, or I should do before I go to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. And this is one step that helps me really get to that point that I need to talk to, rather than getting sideswiped or left, right and center and feeling like I'm going through a loop. Okay, cool, thanks. That's actually really great. So what if so I'm going to go back to the questions of, so I have not been able to pay. So what if I'm not able to pay the company and they start threatening? So I've asked for hardship, I've gone through that, but then I'm still not able to pay, and the company's threatened to report me to the police. What happens then?
If that's the case, then you may be at risk of a criminal prosecution. You should contact Legal Aid Queensland or a community legal service for advice.
Yeah, cool. So I know it's not a really smart thing to do, but a friend of mine said that they couldn't afford payment, and so they pawned the goods and said they will just get it out next week, and is that okay? Is that something you could do, knowing that it's a lease?
No. You shouldn't, because you don't actually own the goods. So if you've pawned goods that you've leased, you may be at risk of criminal prosecution. You should contact Legal Aid Queensland or a community legal service if that's easier for you.
Okay. So what happens though if the goods have been stolen before the contract is finished?
So that's different. So if it's purely just been stolen, then you should report that to the police as soon as possible, and also contact the lease company.
Okay. So so that's, for me, I would be contacting the police, getting a police report or number or whatever they give you.
Q-Prime number,
A Q-Prime number, okay. And so why Q-Prime? What does that mean? Queensland Police Prime number?
I'm not actually sure why they call it
that's
that.
just weird. Okay,
but it's just, I just know that Most of the numbers start with like a Q before the number.
Okay.
And that's what the financial providers will usually want.
Okay, and then
Maybe someone in the
company.
webinar can answer our question. What does Q prime mean? Type in your answer if you can teach us something today.
So I've never been I'm going to go back. I've never been able to afford the payments. Can I do anything about it?
Yeah, so if you're concerned that you shouldn't have got the loan in the first place, or that you couldn't afford it in the first place, you should contact us for some advice. So we can have a look at whether there was any irresponsible lending.
Okay. So is there a definition towards irresponsible lending? Is it something that they should have done? The consumer leasing company should have checked? Is that part of that process you talked about before? So
it's about checking whether you could have afforded it,
okay.
Whether you could have made the payments without undue hardship.
Okay, then, cool. So, which is what we're probably going to go into next. The question I was going to ask is, what if I didn't realise how expensive it was going to be, and can I do something about it? So basically, what I'm asking, I didn't really think it was going to cost that much, and I thought there was some criteria where I wouldn't have to pay so much. So it just seems to be lots of payments. Like I'm looking whether from the consumer leases, is there a capped amount that they actually can't pay, could go to, as in percentage wise and stuff like that.
Okay, so the first part is you're asking if you didn't realise it was going to be expensive, what can you do? Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier on, you can negotiate to change the contract, but if you're going to do that, we do recommend you get legal advice if you're unsure of the implications of that, if you request a change of that contract. So that's the first part. The second part is that consumer lease companies are not actually restricted or capped by the amount of money that they can charge you during the course of a lease. But you should be aware that payday lending loans with which are terms of less than 15 days are banned. That's separate again. Yeah. When we refer to payday lending, we refer to small amount loans to medium amount lending.
Yeah.
So small amount loans are loans of up to $2,000 for a term of 12 months.
Okay.
Charges of interest are capped at 20% establishment fees. That's where maybe you're not unsure about the percentage question. And they can charge up to 4% per month flat rate, but they can't have any security taken for the small amount credits.
So that's anything under 2,000.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
In relation to medium amount credit loans, they're from 2,001 to 5,000, and they can charge interest capped at 20% establishment fee. And their interest is capped at 48%, and security can be taken for that loan. So that's the cap, the 48% for that one.
Okay, so let me get this right. So what I'm hearing is a consumer lease and a payday lending are two different things.
Yes, absolutely.
And that a consumer lease has no capped, they're not capped in how much they can charge you.
That's correct.
Okay, so they can charge whatever they want, however they feel like it. However, a payday lending is different again.
Yes.
And it has criteria attached to it that says certain amounts have a certain amount to do it. Okay. But basically, I'm actually going to be spending money. I'm going to be going for a small amount, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to be paying lots and lots because there's a lot of percentages that are attached to it, either establishment fees or continuous payments regularly on a fortnightly have a percentage attached to that. Okay. Cool. So, do I have to sign a contract if I want to purchase goods?
No. If you have money up front to pay it and you just want to buy it, you can do that. You don't have to sign a lease. So alternatives you could have instead of leasing, if you don't want to do a lease, is we've got them on our slide here. But there's a few things. You can do a lay-by where you basically pay some money. You leave the goods at the store and you come back, keep making your payments, and then you can take it out the end. So you don't actually take it with you until it's paid off. Or you could apply for a meals loan, which is no interest loan, the number's up there. and that's for up to $1,500 for essential goods and services like fridges and washing machines. And this is really important because a lot of people, when they come to us, they don't realise that the smell scheme is there, and so they come to us with all these leases and not realising that, you know, for example, a $500 fridge is going to cost them thousands of dollars. Or the other options are that you can save up for it. So if you don't urgently need it, and say there's maybe a TV system that you really want, you just keep putting some money aside that you would normally make for your like weekly payments instead, and use that so you can buy it outright. And then the other thing is, if you're not a financial counsellor and or for clients, if they want some help, they could also possibly go to a financial counsellor to help with some budgeting or how to save. So you can ring the National Debt Helpline, which is on here, which is 1-800-007-007. So you can talk to them over the phone, or they could help you make an appointment to see someone face to face.
Oh, excellent. I think I've asked all the questions I can about consumer leases. I think I could probably go down another rabbit hole with you on them, but I'm best to pull up now.
Oh, and somebody, before we move on, somebody does know what Q Prime means. One of our lovely audience members has let us know that Q Prime stands for Queensland Police Records and Information Management Exchange. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We learn something new every day. So I really think that the alternative options is a great option at the end of the day. I love what we talked about then, because really, based on everything you've talked about, I'm paying more than what I'm actually going to originally get in the first place. So I really don't have anything else to talk about, like I said. So I think we can probably go on to lemon laws. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to start. This is how much I know about lemon laws. Okay, Charo? It started on the 1st of September 2019. That's it. So my first question is, what is lemon law all about?
Okay, so we already had the Motor Dealers Chattels Auction Years Act 2014, but because of the lemon laws, that actually got amended on the 1st of September, like you said, Edwina. So the new law focuses on protecting people for the sale of new and used motor vehicles, motorhomes, caravans from a car dealership and manufacturers in Queensland. So a lemon is a vehicle recently bought which has several defects. It can be either one major or several minor defects. It either never worked or can't be fixed, or breaks down, gets fixed, breaks down, gets fixed continually.
Okay, so as someone such as myself, a consumer, how does this help me or help anyone?
So it's really exciting, these lemon laws. It's been a long time coming. Yes, it is. It's very exciting. I'm really happy that they're there. So there's two main things that happened when the laws came in. So the amount that can be claimed now at the Queensland Civil Administrative Tribunal, which is known as QCAT, the previous law only covered up to $25,000 that you could claim.
Okay.
So if you had any damages, let's say you had a damages of $30,000 worth on your car, you couldn't use QCAT because their jurisdiction was only up to $25,000. Now with the new changes, it allows up to $100,000. So that's really big, and you know it would help people that have motorhomes, for example. The second part of that is the introduction of the Class B warranties.
Okay. So you said the word damages, and in my head I just went, what do damages mean in lemon law context? Because I think damages is when I've accidentally ran into something, or I've tried to back out and took half the fence with me. So so what does damages in the lemon law context mean?
Okay, so it refers to the loss of money, time off the road, and reasonable alternatives to transport costs. So say, for example, bus fares, taxis, but it has to be reasonable. And any further mechanical costs that you've incurred because of the faulty product.
Okay. So that's what damages mean.
Yes.
Okay. So why is this change so important to me as a consumer? And how do you break that down, the warranty stuff?
Okay. So I'm not sure if we put it in our slides. Did we? No, we didn't. Okay.
Oh, yes, we did. There we go.
Oh, there we go. So before we had the Class A warranties, which I'll go over anyway. So a Class A warranty, so prior to the amendments, we've only had the Class A. We didn't have the Class B. So the Class A is on the day of its sale, has an odometer reading of less than 160,000 kilometres and has a built date of no more than 10 years from the date of its sale. The class, and just for your own records and so you're aware, the Class A warranty expires after 3 months or the first 5,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first.
Okay.
With the new changes, there's an introduction of the Class B warranties, which is what I was sort of talking about before.
Okay.
So Class B warranties are vehicles that on the day of its sale has an odometer of over 160,000 kilometres or has a built date of more than 10 years before the day of its sale. Class B warranty vehicles now have a statutory warranty which covers it for either the vehicle travelling of up to 1,000 kilometres or upon the expiration of 1 month from taking possession of the vehicle, whichever occurs first. So before this introduction, we didn't even have Class B. So people would come to us often with cars that were 10 years old or 200,000 kilometres, and we didn't have this protection there.
Okay. So we have all this protection now. We've got 2 warranties, a Class A and a Class B, which is great, as you said, and you know, the amounts are higher than what it used to be. But how do I go about proving that I have a lemon car?
So you need evidence.
Okay.
So evidence which you can get from mechanical reports that the car is faulty and what needs to be fixed. So like I said before, it has to have, it can be either one major defect or several minor, and it can either never worked or just continually gets broken down and fixed and broken down. So things that could be major defects would be things like the car being totally immobile, not able to be fixed at all, total engine failure, and that the car can't be fixed within a reasonable amount of time. Minor defects would be things like the windscreen wipers just stop working, or there's some sort of issue with the car which can be easily rectified with a software update. So there's that. So once you have that, you've then got to tell the dealer about it.
Okay.
So you have your obligation as the buyer is to, under the statutory warranty, to advise the dealer of the defect in writing before you end the warranty period.
Okay.
So that, the periods that we talked about before. So either the 1 month.
Yeah, 1 month. 1,000
kilometres. Or the 3 months and the
5,000
kilometres.
Yeah.
So if the dealer accepting the defect must repair the defect within 14 days, so that's if they accept it, they have to repair it within 14 days.
Okay.
If they refuse to accept the defect is covered by the statutory warranty, or they have accepted the defect but then fails to repair it within the repair period, or fail to repair the defect so that the defective part can be reasonably relied on to perform its intended function. So they say, yeah, I'm going to repair it, and then they just don't actually repair it, and then they keep repairing it and it doesn't actually get fully repaired. Then you may choose to make a complaint to the Office of Fair Trading first with the hope of resolving it through mediation, or then you could go to QCAT, which is what this law was about, for damages of up to $100,000. If you decide that QCAT's not the thing that you want to do and you want to go to the Magistrates Court, you can also go to the Magistrates Court. There's nothing stopping you from going to the Magistrates Court. It's just that we're letting you know that the lemon laws are applied to the QCAT jurisdiction. So you do have the option to go to the Magistrates Court if you don't want to go through QCAT.
So with the warranty, you just talked about Class A, Class B. Are they on top of my warranty that I normally pay when I go for a car loan or something like that?
Yeah, so statutory warranty, which is what that was, is a right protected by law. The laws, put it in place so you've got that guaranteed protection. When you pay for a car warranty at a car yard, it's usually paid for by you and included within your credit provider contract. It's usually an extra to the statutory warranty. So some of these car yard warranties can make it difficult to claim and are sold to consumers where they will not add more protection than already legislated protections. You just need to be aware that they're two separate things.
Okay, Dan. Okay, so On the slide, it already tells me what is a QCAT, but what QCAT is, Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal. But what do they do exactly?
So they hear a lot of different things, but they are an independent and accessible tribunal that effectively resolves disputes on lots of different areas.
Okay.
For example, residential tenancy, they've got consumer debts, consumer trader issues, they've got debt issues, they've got guardianship issues. So they have all sorts of different jurisdictions that they deal with. But their purpose is to provide a quick, inexpensive avenue to resolve disputes between parties and then make the decision.
Okay, so you're saying that I can go to QCAT rather than go to a magistrate's court. What's the difference? Why not go to a magistrate's court?
So the magistrate's court's usually more expensive than QCAT. QCAT is also friendlier for self-represented people. Magistrate's court can be quite daunting if people want to self-rep, whereas QCAT's more friendly for people to do it themselves. So QCAT has the powers also to make final decisions to resolve disputes. For example, they can order that a party to the proceeding pay a stated amount to a stated person, or an order requiring that party to the proceeding other than the applicant to perform work to rectify a defect in goods and services to which the claim relates. So if you're claiming that your car's not working and you want the car company to fix it, QCAT has the powers to order that person to then fix it.
So how do I go about proving this to QCAT?
So things that QCAT will look at when deciding if you've proved your case would be things like what I've mentioned a little bit earlier, mechanical reports to show that the car is faulty. For example, a statement from a mechanic which will evidence that the dealer was aware of the faults when they sold the vehicle. In relation to new cars, however, I need to be aware that you just need to show that the car isn't working.
For new cars, that it's not working.
Yeah, you just have to show it's not working.
Well, that's pretty simple. So that's because that's where the warranty B is really good. Does that cover more than new cars?
No, the new cars is more A.
Okay then.
But because it's new, you'd sort of expect your car to be working within a week or two and not just have a total breakdown.
True. So if it's under 160,000 Ks, of course it's new. Sorry, I should have read. I was listening. Okay, so if I go for, is there a time limit or period that I can make a claim to QCAT?
So you have up to 6 years from your cause of action to start a claim in QCAT.
6 years?
Up to 6 years.
Up to 6 years to make a claim? Okay. So how long does that process at QCAT take?
Each case is different. So I can't say 3 months or 2 years. They're all different, and it depends on how complex the matter is or whether the matter's been disputed.
Okay then. However, it's just important just to go through if you want to. So if I want to self-represent, I can do that. So I can do this myself, or if I want to, what would you recommend me doing? Or could I get representation? Well, what's the better option? Because QCAT, you said, is a lot easier process to go through, and it's about self-representation. So I can do it myself, or what would you recommend as a lawyer?
Well, I can't really recommend. All I can give you is just your options. So you just need to be aware that you don't have to have a lawyer to go to the tribunal. You don't feel like you need to have one. And you can self-rep, and that's what they're all about. They're about people trying to self-represent themselves. So you don't need a lawyer, but you should get legal advice before making a claim. You can call us for advice, or you may want to see a community legal service, and they could assist you. However, if you want to just self-represent, you do not want a lawyer involved, you don't have to use a lawyer, like I said before. If you do really want a lawyer, you can seek leave to appear. Well, you will need to seek leave to appear before QCAT will even hear you. So leave to appear means that you need permission from a lawyer. Need permission for a lawyer to represent you from QCAT.
Okay, I was going to say, what? Yeah, I need to get leave. I already got to get leave to go to this thing. So leave is for a leave. Appear to leave is a QCAT process about asking for a lawyer to represent on my behalf. Okay.
So they will give you leave sometimes. Well, the things that they usually look at why they would give someone leave is if someone has vulnerabilities such as an impairment, so they're blind, or they have some sort of impairment where they can't self-represent themselves, or if they're under the age of 18. So that's
okay.
another reason why
Oh, that's good
QCAT
to
may
know.
consider
Yeah.
a lawyer getting involved.
Okay, so if I buy my young child under 18 in a car and something happens, I can actually get someone to represent on their behalf to help them.
If they buy it.
If they buy it. Okay. If they buy it.
If they buy it.
If they bought a car, like the good little person that they are, and they buy their own stuff, this is what they could do. Okay, cool. That's good to know because I didn't know about the under 18 part. So if I go through QCAT and I win, what happens next? How do I make sure that the other party pays what they're supposed to because QCAT says so, you know? And how long could this take?
Okay, so you should seek legal advice before you progress the matter.
So progressive matter as in after QCAT has made their
After
decision.
the order, yes, after
Okay.
they make their decision, their order, and they say, yes, Edwina should have her car fixed, and they don't fix it, for example, and you want to enforce that, you should get legal advice before you take it any further.
Yeah.
You need to be aware, though, as well, if you want to enforce it after you get the order, you have up to 6 years to enforce that, and that's under the Uniform Civil Procedure Rules.
Okay then. So it's I can go through QCAT, I can self-represent, or I can get a lawyer to represent if I get leave. However, at the end of the day, it's best for me to get legal advice after I get that decision to help me with trying to get this process through, or the decision to help with.
Well, I think just in case you have any questions also, and you want to know about process, if you just want some advice, then it's always best to call. I mean, it's free. So give us a call, and or you can go see a community legal service, and hopefully they could help as well.
Cool.
And then you'd be in a better position to figure out what you need to do.
What's the next step? Because I think this is great that there's these options available, but it's still, once you get into the nitty gritty, it still is something that you have to do once the QCAT have made the decision.
That's right.
And that's the thing that is a little bit the interesting part of it. So yeah, I think seeking legal advice would be probably a really good work going, just to help you get through that process of understanding the Uniform Civil Procedure rules.
Yeah.
Okay, for 1999, is that right? Okay, and I have 6 years.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So now my last question about this is, what if I bought a car in Sydney? Okay, not even Sydney. Let's say I get a Tweed Heads, and I buy a car in Tweed Heads, and I bring it. It's only a short trip across the border. Does this legislation impact? Does this legislation work here if I bought it from New South Wales, Tweed Heads, and brought it to Queensland?
No.
What? Seriously?
No. Because this lemon law, the Motor Dealers Chattels Act, has been amended. It only applies in Queensland.
Okay.
So the dealer has to be in Queensland.
Okay, so the dealer has to be in Queensland. But what if they're... No, I'm not going to argue. I was going to... No. So we actually finished our conversation about consumer leases and lemon laws. And Charo, thank you so much for educating me.
Oh, you'll see on the PowerPoint slide as well, there's a past webinar we've got up there on small amount loans and payday lending. So if you're interested in learning more about that topic, Paul Holmes, one of our senior lawyers here, did a presentation on that. So you can watch that YouTube clip in your own time if you're interested. And there's a link to the YouTube clip there for you. Oh, I'd also like to let you all know about our new question and answer video that we've uploaded to YouTube about understanding Queensland's new lemon laws. So if you'd like to learn a bit more about what we've talked about today, you can go to that clip as well. And that's also with Paul Holmes, our senior lawyer, who answers some questions. And it's a very short video too. It's only 5 minutes. And we've put it on our Facebook page, so you can actually share it with your clients if you think your clients would benefit from some more basic understanding in like a really short, nice video. And it's actually got an animation to it as well. We've got little cars that come through it and cool whiteboard writing, so it's quite engaging to watch. So yeah, if you've got 5 minutes, give that one a watch or send it to someone who you think needs it. Okay. Okay, so thank you everyone. We're looking forward to seeing you at the next webinar, which remember there's one next week on the 7th of November. So feel free to go on our website and sign up to that. Here's another picture of it. There we go. All right, thanks everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. See ya.